Imagine a still night in the remote north of Australia, the kind of night when the bush goes quiet and you can hear the sea breathing. In the clearing by the pandanus trees, an old storyteller sits with his grandchildren, their faces lit only by the rising moon. He begins to speak in a low, rhythmic tone. He tells them that long ago, a man became the moon to escape a world of pain. Each month he rises, full of memories, then fades away to heal and return. He promises that by the time the story ends tonight, they'll never look at the moon in the same way again. To the viewers at home, he pauses. And if you're drawn to mysteries of the sky and the spirits that shape it, give us a like and stay till the end. You won't regret it. The narrator sets the stage with a gentle, reflective tone. For thousands of years, Aboriginal peoples have woven stories about the night sky that aren't just myths. They're cultural anchors that teach ethics, science, and survival. In many of these traditions, the sun is a woman, warm and life-giving, while the moon is a man whose journey across the sky is laced with lessons about anger, forgiveness, and cycles. It's through these stories that elders pass down knowledge about when to hunt, when to fish, and when to dance. To understand why the moon matters so much, consider the Torres Strait Islanders. For them, the moon isn't just a pretty face. It tells you when the tides will be low enough to gather shellfish and when the water will be too murky for fishing. There's a Merriam tale of a woman in the full moon weaving mats. Her figure is traced in the dark patches you see on the lunar surface. Fisherfolk watch the crescent's shape to predict storms. When the points of the crescent tip upward like a bowl, Old Man Sam from Yam Island knows the sea will be glassy. When it tips sideways, he gathers tarps, because the wet season is coming. These aren't superstitions. They're ancestral observations tied to the rhythm of the ocean. In this video, we'll explore these stories and the moral codes they carry, hearing from elders, scientists, and community members who have listened to the spirits drawing the moon. First, we step into the story of the Moon Man. It starts, as many old tales do, with a family. The Moon Man was once a hunter with 2 wives and 2 sons. According to a story collected in Arnhem Land, he sent his boys out to catch fish, but they kept only the biggest catch for themselves and brought home a few scrawny swimmers. Enraged by their greed, the man killed his sons. Shocked and grief-stricken, his wives set fire to his paperbark hut in revenge. He stumbled out, burned and humiliated, then scaled a giant pandanus tree. As the flames licked his heels, he leapt into the sky and transformed into the moon, carrying the scars of his actions on his glowing face. Every month he waxes full, a reminder of his anger, then slowly wanes as he cools and contemplates what he's done. This tale isn't simply a fantastical origin story. It teaches about the consequences of rage and the cyclical nature of wrongdoing and forgiveness. Think about your own life or the life of a mate you know who blew up at family, only to spend weeks feeling guilty, then slowly mending relationships. The Moon Man's monthly cycle reflects that rhythm. In one community, a grandmother, Auntie Joan, tells her teenage grandsons this story whenever they argue over chores. She reminds them that selfishness leads to hurt and that it's better to share than hoard. By linking a moral lesson to the phase of the moon, the story becomes a living calendar. Each time the moon grows full, the lesson is refreshed. There's also a practical element hidden here. In the top end, many species of fish spawn around the full moon. The bright light makes it easy for them to see each other, but it also makes them more visible to predators. Elders often avoid fishing on the brightest nights to give the fish a chance to reproduce. That's the science within the story. Anger leads to destruction, and unrestrained harvest leads to empty nets. By personifying the moon as a man who killed his own offspring and now glows with remorse, the elders encourage restraint in their people. Next, we visit the Yolngu people of northeastern Arnhem Land and their version of the lunar cycle. Here the moon is called Ngalindi. In their telling, Ngalindi grows fatter each night, feasting on yams and sugar bag, until his wives become irritated by his laziness and overindulgence. They grab their axes and chop pieces off him, slice by slice. Wounded, Ngalindi escapes by climbing a long rope to the sky, where he hides behind the earth. Over several nights, he recovers and grows fat again until the cycle repeats. The cuts his wives inflicted are the phases of the moon. The dark time when he hides is the new moon. Another nearby group, the Kuema, says that the moon fattens by devouring the spirits of those who break sacred law. When you see the moon swelling in the sky, it is a warning to follow the elders' rules or face spiritual consequences. These stories are often told during initiation ceremonies. Auntie Elaine, an elder from the Yolngu clan, recalls sitting at the edge of a campfire while her aunties painted designs on her skin. As the brush moved, an elder whispered how Ngalindi's gluttony cost him his comfort. The group around the fire nodded, understanding that the lesson wasn't just about food, but about imbalance. The waxing moon warns against taking more than your share, while the waning moon reminds you that healing is possible after you've been hurt. There's a lovely symmetry here. The moon dies and rises again, just as people make mistakes and find redemption. Modern scientists appreciate the precision hidden in these tales. Astronomers note that the average lunar cycle is about 29.5 days. Indigenous observers, without telescopes or clocks, calculated this by tracking when the moon got fat or disappeared. They could predict eclipses and set the timing of ceremonies. When Dr. Ray Norris and other researchers studied Yolngu songs, they noticed references to the moon chasing the sun and occasionally catching her, a poetic description of an eclipse. It's a reminder that indigenous knowledge isn't just symbolic. It contains empirical observations encoded in story. By couching celestial mechanics in the drama of Ngalindi and his wives, elders made sure that everyone, from children to warriors, remembered when to expect darkness and when to plant yams. We then travel across the Torres Strait, where the moon isn't a man at all but a companion to a woman. On Mer, also known as Murray Island, there is a tale about a lady in the full moon who weaves mats using pandanus leaves. Her silhouette appears in the dark Maria, those shadowy patches on the lunar surface. According to Elder Bain Mabo, his grandmother would point to the moon and say, "See her, she's weaving mats for us to lay on when our time comes." The mats represent the resting places for spirits after death. The moon man brought the lady there, so together they light the world of the living and the dead. The moon also guides daily life. Fisherfolk on Mer adjust their nets and hooks based on the phase. During the first and last quarter, when the moon looks like half a circle, the tidal range is low. These are called neap tides. The water runs clear, allowing fishers like Uncle Tom to see dugong and turtle easily. During the full or new moon, when the tides are high and fast, spring tides, the water turns turbid. Uncle Tom stays ashore then and mends his nets, knowing he'll waste fuel trying to catch fish in murky waters. He learned this from his father and has taught his nephews that the moon's brightness and shape equal a fishing forecast. The crescent moon also speaks to weather. When the horns of the crescent point upward, elders say the moon is holding water, a sign that the dry season persists. But when the horns tilt sideways, they say the moon is pouring water, heralding rain and wind. In late December, when the storms build, children race outside to spot a halo around the moon. They call it the Moon Man's hut. He builds it to shield himself from the monsoon. These signs help them prepare gardens, secure roofs and plan travel. It's science couched in spirit. The moon's face is at once a calendar, a weather bureau and a spiritual guide. Beyond practical guidance, these lunar stories carry deep spiritual lessons. They remind listeners that everything is connected. Your actions influence your community, and your community influences the cosmos. In the Moon Man story, his wife's retaliatory fire and his transformation into the moon show that violence and anger reverberate through time. In the Ngalindi tale, laziness and greed are physically carved off the offending character. In the Torres Strait story, the lady weaving mats ties the cycle of life and death together. The same hands that create mats for the living prepare mats for the spirits. Many indigenous communities see the moon as a lawgiver. When the Kuwema say the moon fattens on the spirits of lawbreakers, they're warning that moral breaches have consequences, not just on earth, but in the spiritual realm. Elders keep these narratives alive to regulate behavior. They embed social rules in cosmic drama. This is particularly important in small communities where resources must be shared fairly. By listening to the stories of the moon, young people learn to respect elders, share food and protect the environment, not because of written laws, but because they see their choices reflected in the sky. An elder from Elko Island, Auntie Grace, once described how she would calm her grandchildren when they were frightened at night. She would point to the waning moon and say, "That's Ngalindi. He's thin because he's learning to do better. You can learn too." In that moment, the moon wasn't just a disk. It was a mentor. The children saw that even celestial beings have to work on themselves. This kind of storytelling gives comfort and guidance. It shows that failure is part of the cycle and that growth comes from acknowledging mistakes. Let's turn to how these ancestral teachings intersect with modern science and law. In the mid-20th century, anthropologists dismissed many indigenous cosmologies as mere myths, but researchers like Dr. Dwayne Hamacher and Dr. Ray Norris have since shown that many Dreamtime stories contain accurate descriptions of celestial events. In recent years, the Torres Strait Islanders used their knowledge of the moon and sea in a landmark legal case. They performed the Gedge Togia, or moon dance, in court to demonstrate the continuity and depth of their relationship with the sea. The dance, performed under a full moon, symbolizes the pulling of the tide and the movement of spirits. The court recognized that this cultural knowledge formed part of their legal claim to sea rights. It was one of the first times Western law acknowledged indigenous astronomical knowledge as evidence. In schools across Australia, teachers now collaborate with elders to incorporate lunar stories into lessons about science and ethics. Children learn that while NASA describes the moon's phases in terms of sunlight and shadow, their own elders describe them in terms of Ngalindi's journey or the Moon Man's remorse. Both explanations coexist, enriching children's understanding of the world. This blending of knowledge systems encourages respect for different ways of knowing and highlights that science is not just a Western pursuit. It's a universal human curiosity expressed in diverse languages and stories. Personal stories still surface in surprising ways. In a recent interview, a marine biologist named Dr. Kimberly told how, as a child on the coast of Queensland, she would sit on the beach with her grandfather. He would tell her the story of the Moon Man while showing her how to watch the tide. Years later, she used the same moon tide knowledge when planning fieldwork. "It's funny," she laughed. "I have all the satellite data now, but my granddad's lunar calendar still tells me when the currents will let me dive safely." Her voice carries pride and gratitude. She knows she stands on the shoulders of ancestors. The spirits who drew the moon continue to draw the paths of modern scientists, politicians, and artists. As the story draws to a close, we return to the image of the moon climbing the night sky. We've heard about the moonman's tragic anger and his eternal penance. We've learned how Ngalindi's gluttony teaches restraint. We've seen a lady weaving mats in the moon's dark patches and felt how fishers read the crescent as a weather vane. Through all these tales runs a common thread. The moon is not a distant rock, but a member of the community. He watches, warns, and comforts. He makes mistakes and atones for them. He links the living to the dead and the human to the natural. For the viewer, the takeaway is that these stories are alive. They're not relics stuck in museums, but lessons whispered over campfires, sung in dances and echoed in courtrooms. They remind us that the world is interconnected. Anger affects the moon's face. Kindness brings clear tides, and stories shape reality. Next time you stand under a full moon, think of the moon man's journey and the lady weaving mats. Think of the fisherman waiting for neap tides and the children watching the crescent tilt. These images invite us to slow down, observe and respect the rhythms around us. In a world where time feels linear and rushed, the moon reminds us that life moves in cycles and that we can always begin again. If this journey through the spirits who drew the moon resonated with you, show some love by hitting the like button. Share this video with friends who are curious about ancient wisdom and the cosmos. Drop a comment below about what the moon means to you or any lunar story you've heard. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. There are many more stories waiting to be told, and your support helps keep these voices alive.